Following breaking news into CNN, Washington, D.C. officials today suing the Trump administration over the deployment of thousands of National Guard troops into the city without the consent of local leaders. The lawsuit claims this action by President Trump violates the Constitution. CNN correspondent Gabe Cohen is following this for us. Gabe, what more are you learning about the lawsuit and how is the White House responding?
Yeah, so D.C.'s local attorney general is essentially arguing here, Boris, that the Trump administration is violating federal law by deploying these troops and essentially deputizing them as local law enforcement to function that way in the district, calling this essentially a military occupation. I'll read you a section of the complaint that was filed today in federal court. They say no American jurisdiction should be involuntarily subjected to military occupation. The District of Columbia brings this lawsuit to obtain declaratory and injunctive relief that will stop the defendants, the Trump administration, their violation of law, remedy the harms that defendants, D.C., are inflicting on the district, and preserve the district's sovereignty. Remember, they have said that the Trump administration has been violating home rule here in the district, and that, as we see now, more than 2,000 National Guard troops out across Washington, many of them armed, some of them coming from 6 other GOP-led states. Now, you asked, what is the White House saying? Well, they're essentially saying that this lawsuit is nonsense. To read you a quote from their deputy press secretary, they say this lawsuit is nothing more than another attempt at the detriment of D.C. residents and visitors to undermine the president's highly successful operations to stop violent crime in D.C. They have been touting the decline in violent crime over the past few weeks. We've heard that from the White House. But I do want to note that the mayor here has been in a very tricky political position because she's been trying to do this delicate dance, not antagonize the president, and just sort of work through this federal emergency that is set to expire next week unless Congress decides that they are going to extend it. This lawsuit, though, throws a little bit of fuel on the fire. And today we heard the mayor during a press event really refusing to endorse this lawsuit, saying 100% of her focus is just getting onto the other side of this emergency to try to lock up sovereignty here in Washington, even though that will likely mean still seeing more federal law enforcement in the coming months and possibly National Guard. We know that their mission here has been extended until December, though it's not totally clear if they're actually going to be deployed up until that date.
Gabe Cohen, thank you so much for the update. Erica?
Well, President Trump's crime crackdown may actually be heading south. He's been floating the idea of sending National Guard troops to New Orleans. Well, the governors of Illinois and Maryland have rejected similar ideas for both Chicago and Baltimore. Louisiana's governor says he's all in.
President Trump is focused on getting control of our cities, but not doing it the way past presidents and other administrations have done, where it's temporary. What he wants to see is permanent safety for Americans.
Governor Landry launched his own crime crackdown just last year, establishing a special state police unit to improve safety in the Crescent City. It's important to note, too, New Orleans has seen a drop in violent crime when you compare that with the first half of this year to last year, including a 22% drop in murders, homicides down 20%, rapes down 56%, robbery down 39%. Joining me now to discuss, Democratic Congressman Troy Carter, who represents the New Orleans area. Sir, it's good to have you with us this afternoon. As I noted, your governor, who is a Republican, welcomes this idea from the president to send those troops into New Orleans, so it would not be against the wishes of the governors, as we saw in, of course, Los Angeles or Chicago. Do you believe the city has any legal recourse if the state doesn't object?
Yeah, I think we do. The city of New Orleans has home rule charter. Our local charter, vis-a-vis our local constitution, declares that the city has the autonomy to govern itself. Listen, we encourage and embrace any help that this president wants to give, but militarizing our city is not the way to do it. You've noted in your reporting that crime is at an all-time low in New Orleans. Violent crime is down, lower than it's been since the 1960s or 70s. That's significant. So we encourage any help that we can get from the federal government. I would encourage this president, if he wants to help, to look back to what Bill Clinton did in 1995 when he worked with Congress to send federal dollars for community policing, to work at the core causes of crime, to work with our local department and not attempt to take it over. These community policing efforts made a huge difference in the city of New Orleans, working with communities. And listen, we're grateful to Governor Landry, who has had state troopers on the ground working in conjunction, collaboratively with the New Orleans Police Department. But to have a military zone created in the middle of the city of New Orleans is not necessary, and I think is actually politically motivated when you look at the attempts of each of these actions are all in cities that are run and governed by Democratic mayors.
You talk about how you would embrace help from President Trump. You laid out a couple of things you'd like to see. I know you've also talked about help with recruitment, help with police training, also looking at impoverished areas. Have you reached out to this administration to say, hey, can we talk about this? Here are some ways we believe you could be effective.
I sent a letter to the president today delineating these asks. If you really want to be helpful to the people of New Orleans, identify funding sources that we can work with, providing for better pay for police officers, better recruitment and retention, working with our district attorney's office so they can have the state-of-the-art equipment that allows them to have better prosecution rates, and working with our sheriff to make sure that we have infrastructure that will protect the prison population, to make sure we don't have outbreaks as we've seen before. There are a number of ways that this president could help if his desire is truly to help and to not have what appears to me and many others as political theater. Only going into cities where there are mayors that are operating that are in fact Democrat.
To that point, Governor Landry had said, and I'm quoting him here, we'll take President Trump's help from New Orleans to Shreveport. Shreveport, of course, does have a Republican mayor. Last year, it did have a higher violent crime rate than D.C. Is that something that you believe? You're saying this is political, looking at only at blue-red cities. Is that something that you believe should be on the table then for President Trump?
Well, it is quite suspicious that Shreveport, Monroe, Baton Rouge, that none of these cities are being talked about. He said from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, but in his direct statement, he said, we think we're going to go into New Orleans. The governor said Shreveport to New Orleans. The president never said Shreveport. He never said Monroe. He never said Baton Rouge. And if you look at those crime rates, they're higher than that of New Orleans. Now, listen, we're not pushing away any effort to push back against crime. What we're suggesting is let's not make it political. Let's not make this some political theater that the president wants to distract the American people by attacking Democratic-led cities.
I hope you will let us know if and when you do get a response from the president on that letter that you just sent today. I also just wonder if you have any clarification in terms of the members of the Louisiana National Guard who are currently activated in D.C. Is it your understanding that should this idea that the president is floating, should he follow through with it, the governor okays it, would that potentially require the activation of additional guards, men and women? Have you had any clarification on that point?
Well, they would have to, because if these have already been deployed to D.C., and assuming they stay here, then they would have to obviously deploy additional troops. And I might say that these troops are not being paid per diem because they're going to be here less than 29 days, which is unfortunate because they really are pushing the troops and not giving them per diem. So many of them are actually losing money as they're deployed to come to Washington, D.C. Let me say this. We're in the height of hurricane season, a time that we depend on our National Guard to prepare us for the storm before, during, and after. This is not a time to have our troops distracted. We just came off the commemoration of the 20th year anniversary of Katrina. And now we're going to face with possibility of a storm coming while we're in the midst of hurricane season, and our National Guard is being distracted at best. This is not the time to play these kind of games. This is not a time to tinker with the services of the incredible, and I want to underscore, incredible service that we get from our men and women in military. They do a great job for us. I think, unfortunately, they're being used as pawns in a political charade instead of really wanting to help the city of New Orleans. This is a direct attack on democratic cities.
Congressman Troy Carter, we appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.